The Invisible Man is one of the last notable films, bigger releases to have come out in the before times, before this virus, before all the lockdowns, before all the madness that has stayed with us for months on end. And it is one of the first, among the first films to employ this home video model from studios where, hey, this is a new movie, you can rent it for $20. So the movie was released at the end of February. By the middle of March, it was available to rent on demand. Not a bad model, I would say. Studios are still trying to figure certain things out. But I mean, if you feel it's worth the $20, you go ahead and do that. I didn't partake when this movie came out, but I eventually I have watched it now that it's on one of the 15 streaming services that I have. So I finally got a chance to watch it. I had heard good things. I heard some very positive reviews about it, so I was looking forward to seeing it. And from my understanding, this is kind of like a salvage job from the original conception from Universal Studios doing their whole dark universe thing, where they wanted to kind of do a shared universe of classic Universal monsters, like do like an Avengers, but with Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Invisible Man and all that. With the Mummy, the Tom Cruise movie, that kind of spoiled things a little bit. So here we have a movie that isn't that kind of big Hollywood bajillion dollars on the screen kind of thing. This is a Blumhouse production, and they're well known for modestly budgeting their movies and usually getting a good profit out of it as well, and doing generally a good job in making scary movies, things like that. It's a hot ticket, and they're pumping out their movies, so it seems ideal to salvage what could have been, and this is something very very different from, I assume, the original concept would be. Uh, it is the Invisible Man. It's held that brand, but I mean it's probably not going to be uh, what you might expect it to be with that kind of title, with sort of the inspiration of the H.G. Wells book and the James Whale original film. This is something way way different. The focus isn't so much on the Invisible Man himself, but rather on a female character played by Elizabeth Moss, who is in this abusive relationship with this uh, brilliant mind who is working on optic technology and working on a suit that can make you invisible, and he's controlling, abusive, and she has to get out. So that's the focus of the movie, um, and it's kind of about her trying to start anew and him coming along and torturing her and finally finding some empowerment throughout the whole thing. So that's the gist of it. Elizabeth Moss is very good in the role. Along with modest productions that can be done very well. They usually get really good actors in the film, and I think she does a really really good job. I mean, essentially she's carrying the whole movie with her, and it's a challenging role in that she has to make this transformation. She goes from kind of the vulnerable and desperate in escaping, and then suffering from PTSD and paranoia, and then as things kind of get a little strange around her, kind of turning to uh, despair and near psychosis. Like, is she losing her mind? That kind of stuff. But then ultimately, finding that power within her, and I think she does a really good job of that. And altogether, I mean, there's good special effects in the movie, really good stuff. I mean, because it is lower budget. I mean, it's not as showy as something like say Hollow Man, which takes the same kind of concept of a man becoming invisible, but doesn't take the brand, doesn't name itself the Invisible Man, um, but like really just dives in with all the fantastic special effects and stuff like that. This one's a little bit more modest with that, but there's some good stuff. There's some good special effects and convincing enough special effects that I think it works pretty well. But when you compare it to something like Hollow Man, or the original Invisible Man, those kind of maybe fit more expectedly with the original H.G. Wells novel. This one, it is strange that they would name this movie The Invisible Man, because I mean I'm not the first person to make this comparison, but it almost feels more like a remake of Sleeping with the Enemy, the Julia Roberts film, where that is also about a woman who escapes an abusive relationship, and kind of the suspense of that movie is that she fakes her death in that film, which is, it happens at the beginning of the movie, so it's not really a spoiler there, and she's trying to start her life anew, and the suspense is the boyfriend, is he going to track her down, is he going to use his cunning to find people who know stuff and get information from them and confront her and possibly kill her and anyone else who's around her, and stuff like that. So it actually kind of follows that pretty closely, right down. I think maybe they got a little too cocky with it, like right down to the beachfront property, which is kind of this memorable thing of Sleeping with the Enemy, and they kind of do that here too in sleep in The Invisible Man, which I don't know, it's kind of funny. So there's that. So I don't know. It is kind of odd to me, and I think this, in bringing the Invisible Man concept to this different type of story, about a woman escaping this abusive relationship, it comes with some problems. A few that are kind of hard to ignore. I mean, one of the things that kind of strikes me as unfortunate about the movie and the way that it had to brand itself is the fact that we know so much information going in as the audience. We're dealt a lot of the cards that maybe it should have played close to the chest, because I mean, of course, she escapes the house in the opening scene, and her sister helps her out. She stays with a friend and his daughter, and she's hiding out and stuff like that. She's paranoid that he's going to come track her down and stuff like that. But as it turns out, news comes in. He's killed himself. He's been distraught over the breakup, and he has ended his life. And right away we know that can't be the case, right? He didn't kill himself. I mean, come on, So there's that, and we also learn from the little obituary and scenes later with his name is Adrian. He's the Invisible Man, or is he? He is. I guess maybe there'll be spoilers going into this review, but there's scenes with his brother, who's kind of settling things with his estate, with his will, and all that. And we learn that he has been working in this technology to create invisible suits. So already we kind of know, okay, yeah, he's faked his death. He's using this suit, and all these kind of creepy things that are happening. It's him in the suit stalking her around. Like, we already kind of know that. So we lose a little bit of suspense in that sense, which is unfortunate. Because I mean, maybe, like, if maybe the temptation was just too strong. They had to call this The Invisible Man. Maybe it was something completely unrelated, because I don't even think they give this like an adaptation credit from H.G. Wells anyway. If they called this something else, if they held back some of that information about him having this suit, and that became like a big twist in and of itself, maybe this would have been, more thrilling in its revelations, and at like a half point way in the movie we're like, oh shit, he has this special suit or whatever, and that'd be kind of interesting maybe. But no, we know all this stuff well into the movie. It is written and directed by Lee Winnell, who, he's no stranger to having good twists in his movies. He wrote the original Saw film, and while people have criticized that movie and the movie series on plenty of different merits, I don't think the first Saw gets enough credit for what is actually a really good twist at the end of that film, where kind of literally everything's right in front of you the whole time, and then the twist unveils itself in the end. So that's very good. So I'm thinking throughout this movie, again, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. If you haven't seen it, I'm thinking there's got to be some kind of twist. There's got to be something unveiled a little bit later, and so you kind of think as the audience, armchair detective, whatever. Okay, maybe the twist is maybe this Adrian guy, maybe he really is dead, and this whole time it's his brother, and he's using this suit. He killed his brother, made it look like a suicide, and he wants to discredit the ex-girlfriend because she knows whatever, and that way he can take all the fortune for himself, and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's only kind of half right, where it actually does turn out that the brother is in cahoots with Adrian. They're both kind of, I don't know, maybe like in a similar way to like Scream, where it's actually two killers. They're kind of each taking turns in the suit or something like that. So that's kind of the twist, where really Adrian's brother was kind of like a fall guy in case things go wrong, which is what happens, and all that. But it's really all Adrian's evil plot as the Invisible Man. So it's not the best twist. It's okay, but I mean, really, we know everything going in, and again, just kind of based on the brand, we kind of expect different things, and I wish maybe they had the guts to just call it its own story instead of the Invisible Man, because we expect certain things with an Invisible Man type of story, like being tempted by the power that this suit can bring to well, not a suit in the original case. In the original case, it's a potion, a formula. Science gone mad, and what would an individual do if they had this power to become invisible? You know, would it take over them psychologically? Would they rob and cheat and steal and kill and all that? That's kind of like the thing with the original Claude Rains film. Where he's like rocking back and forth in the chair. He's like, yes, I think I'll kill great men. I think I'll kill little men. I think I'll crash a train just for fun. All that kind of stuff. Here, really, all this Invisible Man character wants to do is, well, just torture his ex-girlfriend, and he wants to convince her to come back to him, have a baby with him, and he'll basically kill whoever's in the way of that. So that's all he really wants, because he does start out. He's already a reasonably wealthy person. So I guess the temptation to rob or whatever, maybe that's just not in the cards for him, or go out and rape and pillage and all that, not a temptation, because kind of the focus here is that he wants to control her. She's the only person in his life that has left him, and that drives him crazy, and the movie, it's more of a focus on her, obviously, not so much him and what she has to deal with, and kind of it's more like a symbolic kind of thing, where with the metaphorical scars left behind with this abusive relationship, it's like they're always there, always watching, always present, even when they're not. So I mean, I guess you can take some kind of symbolism out of that, but at the same time, it's like you look at it through more of a practical kind of way. It's like, okay, this guy has this amazing suit. He couldn't, even if he is already wealthy, if he commissioned this to, like, the military or something like that, he'd be, rich beyond his wildest dreams. He could do whatever he wants, do things that money can't buy. You know, go off and kill politicians, change the world, or kill just for fun, or do all this crazy things and just mess with everybody. But here his razor sharp focus is on the Elizabeth Moss character, Cecilia, who he just wants to, control, and that's his goal. And he does, increasingly make things difficult for her, where first it's just kind of, oh, is he around, things like that, and then, he does worse things, like, eventually he kills her sister and frames her for it. And, that's kind of a good scene in the movie, where it's like, okay, because her and her sister, they kind of have, their own problems, but we see this kind of nice scene where they're finally, reconnecting and being nice with each other, and all of a sudden she slits her throat, puts the knife in her hand, and it's like, oops. It did make me laugh a little bit, because I don't know, it's fun. It's like that scene in North by Northwest, where, like, Cary Grant is framed and he has the knife in his hand. It's funny. But then there's this whole plot about her being institutionalized, and the brother comes in again. He's like, oh well, just succumb to Adrian's demands and I can make this all go away. And I don't know how. I mean, like, you have to suspend your disbelief with a lot of stuff in this movie. It's like, as rich as this guy may be, how he fakes his death, specifically through suicide. They mention, like, how did he do that? I don't know. Did they see a body or whatever? I mean, they're not concerned with those kinds of details. And, like, how could he, after framing her for murder, like, how could he get her off, essentially? Was he fucking God or something? He just has an invisible suit, that's all. And, like, he even seems like he has, like, super ninja powers and stuff. Like, there's a pretty good scene, actually, where he's, in the halls of the institution, where, they have 100 guards in place, and, he's cutting through them and stuff like that. And that's pretty good. So, I mean, to enjoy it, you kind of have to disconnect from reality a little bit. But, I mean, ultimately what we have here is, a battered woman retaking control of her life kind of story, which, I mean, horror movies, they've had a lot of that, and in a lot of different ways. I think horror movies, they can get away with a lot of stuff because it is under this guise of, chaos and macabre and things like that. So in the past and continuing today, they can get away with a lot of stuff. And normally, I mean, the critics would always kind of poo-poo these movies and not praise them for female empowerment and all that kind of stuff. When it is there, and it can be interpreted as such, or they really just say, oh, it's really, exploitative kind of stuff. It's a sick male fantasy kind of stuff with the slashers and stuff like that. But they don't focus on the female empowerment aspect of it. The tune's a little bit different today, so I believe it got some good reviews specifically for that angle, and it plays that out pretty well. Again, Elizabeth Moss, she's really good in that role and making that transformation and taking that power and stuff like that. It's just that why at the end of it all, why use the Invisible Man brand to tell this kind of story? It limits it, unfortunately, in a certain way. Where if it were its completely own original story, which obviously they could easily get away with taking this concept of an invisible suit. Not every movie with a vampire has to call itself Dracula, right? You know what I mean? So, I don't know. They were more interested in maybe, getting in some audiences with brand name recognition rather than telling its own individual story. So, that kind of hurts it a little bit. Hurts the concept, in my opinion. And, a lot of stupid stuff where you have to suspend your disbelief, plot holes, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. If I gotta make one petty complaint, if I haven't been making them already, is that I hated the music in the movie. It's a lot of bassy farts, and maybe it would have been better in another movie, but not this. Felt like it's kind of trying too hard to be this intense score or something like that, where it just kind of got irritating. So that's just me. Maybe some people really like the score, and I can see that. But at the end of it all, I am glad I didn't shell out $20 to stream this. I'm glad I got it on a streaming service I already have. I would recommend the same to anybody who's maybe curious about this movie. I mean, it got good reviews, so maybe this is me kind of just standing out on my own. But I was a little bit underwhelmed. But for everything else, I mean, there's some cool special effects, and I appreciate that and that kind of stuff. Uh, so it's all right. It's an okay movie. What can I say? It's my review, The Invisible Man. Thanks very much for watching. I'm doing 31 Days of Horror, watching horror movies all throughout October, so I hope you'll stay with me for more rambling reviews like this. And be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Stay scared. And until next time, I'll see you later.